Hello and welcome to the Meet Me in Isaiah podcast. My name is Marnie Clark and I am so glad you joined us today. I am thrilled to welcome author Katy Shelton to our show. You may know Katy from the devotional books she co-authored with Anna Nash called Christmas Matters and Easter Matters. Well, she has just written a new devotional called Forever Matters, and it is based on the book of Revelation. You know, in Isaiah, we are given big clues about Jesus' first coming. We have a few in there about his second coming, but Revelation really gives us a glimpse into that. It's been a little more of a pause than I would have liked between the last episode and today's episode, but very appropriately, we left off on our last episode talking about Isaiah 6, where Isaiah finds himself in the throne room of heaven. Well, how appropriate that we are now talking about the book of Revelation. So welcome to the show, Katy Shelton.
Well, hey, Katy, this has been a long time coming. I'm so glad that we're doing this and we're by Zoom. So,
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here today. Glad to join you.
Yeah, so that is my disclaimer. This is Zoom. So, anything goes, but we're just going to trust God with the technology.
Right.
I've loved what I've read so far of your devotional on Revelation Forever Matters. And I am going to be real honest with you. Revelation is the scariest book of the Bible to me. And that sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I was just meditating on it this morning and I thought, wow, I have come so far in understanding God's love for me that I'll even get into the book of Revelation with you because it always scared me as a child.
Yeah. Well, I think you're not alone. I think a lot of people feel that way. I certainly have felt that way. And I just think most people do not have a good grasp on it. And maybe I still don't have a good grasp on it after studying it, but it is fascinating to me. I'm not scared of it anymore. But I think most people probably are intimidated at the very least by it. So I think
Absolutely.
you're
not alone. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, no, so what inspired you to write a devotional? I don't know that I've come across a devotional on Revelation, certainly Bible studies, but what inspired you to do that?
Well, it goes way back, my inspiration. And I'll make it brief, but when I was in middle school, my mother took me to a one-man play at Stanford University called The Revelation of John. And it was featuring an actor named Tom Key, who I think is retired now. He's out of Atlanta, but he had memorized the entire book of Revelation. Now, Revelation has 22 chapters, so it is roughly 400 verses long. And really, he had memorized the entire thing. So he got up on stage and playing the part of John, who wrote Revelation. John received the vision from God. And so Tom Key got up there and played the part of John and acted out the vision that God gave him of Revelation. And it was fascinating. It was mesmerizing to me. And part of that was just his talent as an actor, but also just the powerful, what you hear and see and read about in Revelation. So I walked away from that at, 12 years old or whatever I was. And I came home and I was like, I want to understand that. That's so cool. And so intriguing. I want to understand it. So I got out my paper and pencil, and I thought, I am going to outline this and get a grasp on it, what happens in kind of chronological order. So I got out my paper and pencil, and I got to chapter 3 of 22, and I was like, forget it. I have no idea what all this is talking about. I didn't.
You did this as a child? You tried to outline it?
Yeah, I think I was 12 years old. So
that is amazing.
It didn't work out. but that's where, I guess my point is, that's where my intrigue with Revelation started. And I never made any kind of effort after that until about 5 years ago, when our friend Anna Nash and I wrote two
Yes.
devotional books together. And I started thinking, well, one is Christmas based on the Gospel of Luke, and one is Easter based on the Gospel of John. And I started thinking, back come these thoughts about the Revelation and my intrigue and curiosity and all that. And I thought, I wonder if is really what I thought, we could write a devotional based on Revelation. Anna did not feel inspired, like most people probably would not.
I love that.
Okay, I thought, I feel like I feel inspired to do this. I feel like, maybe God wants me to give this a try. And so that's kind of that's where what happened. That's how it started. So I just tried. I didn't know if I would be able to answer the questions that I wanted to answer. The two questions that I really wanted to answer was, is Jesus in Revelation? And if he is, what is he trying to tell us today that would apply to us today, right here, right now? What does the Revelation mean to us? And so I thought, well, I'm just going to try writing through, kind of like we had written our other devotionals. I thought I'll just try. And so chapter by chapter, I did find Jesus, and I did see that it was applicable today. So that's the story of how and why I wrote it.
Oh, I love so much about that. And just so everyone knows, so it's Christmas matters and Easter matters. And what I love about your devotionals, the ones that you and Anna wrote, and then the one that you just wrote, is that you read a chapter of the Bible, and then you read the daily reading, the daily devotional reading. And that to me makes it so much richer, because you get to pray and read your chapter kind of on your own with the Lord, and then see what you guys have to say about it.
Really tried to bring it to a practical level, and just like be very clear about what is Jesus saying to us in each chapter. And like you said, you've never seen a devotional based on Revelation. I think there are some out there, but I have not seen one that is divided like this one is, just chapter by chapter. So there's some that are divided up differently. People divide up the book of Revelation differently, but I just wanted to go chapter by chapter, just for simplicity, and just to, make it kind of a month-long devotional book, although it's 22 chapters. And I think a month is practical to say, I'm going to get this read in a month. And
there's always a day or so that it doesn't happen. So a few days of grace there. So
a few days of grace.
Oh, so the thing that is so intimate, some people say, and I think you said this as well, I think I've heard a lot of people say that Isaiah feels very intimidating the way Revelation feels intimidating. I think there are a couple reasons for that. But one thing that I have noticed as I am going through Isaiah chapter by chapter now, because when I started this podcast, it was like I would do more themes, like we did our Meet Your Messiah series or different things like that, and pull out some of my favorite verses in Isaiah, and conveniently skip over the part with a lot of judgment. But now that I have gotten into it, I'm like, we're going to go chapter by chapter. It's like I will read out loud. What's that? Say it again.
Can't skip over if you go chapter.
You can't skip over it if you go chapter by chapter. Exactly. And so I committed to doing that. And so in the beginning of each episode, I'll read a chapter out loud, and I always finish with, I know that sounds really scary, but it's good news, I promise.
Right. It's exactly the same in Revelation.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit beforehand, and just about what is God's purpose? What is God's purpose for delivering this judgment?
Yeah.
This message of judgment.
Yeah. So I have in the front of Forever Matters a quote by Johnny Erickson Tata, who you may know who that is. She had an accident as a teenager and was paralyzed after she dove into shallow water. So she's
Yes.
paralyzed, I believe, from the neck down, but she has gone on since that time, and she's probably in her 70s now, maybe, but she's
Yeah.
gone on to have a beautiful ministry. She's an artist who draws with a pen in her mouth, and she just has impacted so many people for Jesus. And she made a statement which has stuck with me and really answers the question that you just asked. Why judge? And she said, God allows what he hates to accomplish what he loves. And to me, that sums it up in a nutshell. I mean, that's very simplistic, but he's not, judgment is not because he's angry or, wants to hurt people. Judgment is because he wants to bring people to him. Right. And that's why he's allowing and even putting forth these judgments on the people and on the earth in Revelation and in Isaiah. And it's because he wants people to come to him. And so with judgment always comes hope. I know you've talked about that. Yeah. And so judgment leads to hope. And so, I mean, I guess that would be my simplistic answer to that question, is that he's all these things in order to bring people to him. And I was thinking about the other day, we got a new puppy.
And you did? I didn't know that.
And she is energetic and she's a little bit cuckoo. But it kind of reminds me of what we're talking about, because I can tell her, no, don't chew on my furniture, don't chew on my rug or whatever. And she'll stop for a minute, but she's going to go right back to it. And then I have to really, no, Scout, do not, you can't. And then she's probably still going to go back. Maybe not, maybe so. But then I have to get a little harsher with her to make her understand what's right and wrong. And she'll really get it if I get harsh enough, which I hate doing, but I can't destroy my house or another person or whatever. So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I feel like he gives us chances without the harshness.
Right.
Some people turn to him, but some people don't. And so these are almost like his last efforts to bring people to him. It's not because he's enjoys seeing people suffer. It's because he loves people and he wants people to turn to him. And so that's why, especially in Revelation, with these 3 sets of 7 judgments, 21 judgments during the 7-year tribulation, he is really trying to give people more opportunities to turn to him. And he's not going to force anybody to turn to him. We're free to do what we want. But he is really, really trying to get people, give people more opportunities to turn to him.
Yes. And it's, I've said so many times, just because I love this so much on this podcast, I have said, Jonah is such an example of that. He knew exactly God's purpose of judgment, and he did not want to do it because God had sent him to his enemies. He's like, I knew it. I knew you were doing this, basically, in so many words, because you are loving and compassionate and, and you relent concerning calamity. I knew this is who you were. And I can't believe you made me do this, basically.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Yeah. And so I would say the other reason that he allows judgment is because he's holy, and the end result in Revelation comes in chapter 21 and 22, the last 2 chapters. And that's the new heaven and the new earth. And what's going to happen in the new heaven and the new earth is, and I've got this verse right here that I love in chapter 21, verse 3. It says, and I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. And the two words that I love in there are dwell and with. He'll dwell.
Mm-hmm.
And so because he's holy, he can't exist in the presence of sin. And this new place that he's creating, this new heaven and new earth, is going to be without sin. So the people who don't turn to him and hang on to their sin, and they're not forgiven because they don't believe in the resurrection, they don't believe in God and his son Jesus, they're not invited into this perfect heaven. And so that is, that's just another reason that he cannot allow sinners or people that reject him to come into heaven. So there has to be, separation there, and there has to be consequences for people who don't accept him.
That's so good. I've gotten a little bit of a sneak peek, and I have read the first few chapters of your book, and it's so encouraging, and you make it so relatable and it just really practical. And so I encourage everyone to get a copy.
The chapter are very they are action verbs, and so each chapter has an action verb that you can walk away with and think, okay, this chapter was about this action verb, like it might be worship or dwell, envision, or there's 22 different action verbs, and you can walk away with something to hold on to about what this chapter means to me today. What can I do in relation to what I learned in this chapter? So I hope that it's very practical and very applicable to everybody in their lives as they read it. So that's my hope.
100%. Well, so the other thing I really wanted to bring out with Isaiah and Revelation is just how we see dimly. We see so dimly, and what we see, God gave us the privilege in Revelation to get a glimpse, but we really don't know it all. And I actually find comfort in that. I don't know about you.
I do too. And I wrote that in one of the chapters. You'll see that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. It might be called Trust. I forget which chapter it is, but yeah.
Yes, because in one of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 131. And it basically says that there are some things that are just too big for us, and that we can just compose and quiet our soul and rest in him, because, in so many words, it says there are just things that are above our pay grade. And so it's like, okay, so we can just rest knowing that he's got it, and we've had a privilege to get a glimpse, that we're not going to know it all. Just like the people in Isaiah's day, they had no clue what was coming. I mean, they had a clue, they were given hints, but they really didn't until they saw, hindsight's 2020. So they couldn't have imagined that Jesus, God's son, was going to be the Messiah.
Exactly. And even, I think I see that 3 times through the Bible, the Old Testament, like you're talking about in Isaiah, then the disciples, when they were with Jesus on earth, time after time, he would tell them what was coming. And they were like, we don't get that. We don't understand just tear the temple down and raise it in 3 days. I mean, they didn't understand it either. And in fact, I have some verses right here, and I don't necessarily need to read them all, but it's when Jesus was, so he says in Matthew 16, well, I'll just read it. So it says, from that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you." But he turned to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man."
Yeah. He told them. He flat out told them.
Yes. And Peter didn't just say, "I don't understand that. What does that mean?" He said, "May that never happen. That will never happen." And then you see what Jesus said to him in return. He called him
Yeah.
Satan. he said, in other words, Satan is using you
Yeah.
to doubt my words and the word of God, really. So,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
they had such a hard time, they couldn't see it. They could definitely not see it clearly. And Jesus was sitting there telling them. And so I feel the same way about Revelation. And I write in the very beginning, I'll just be real brief about this story, but in the introduction, I talk about this is right along the lines of not being able to see clearly what's coming.
Right. Yeah.
I was with my family. We were in Jacksonville, Florida, so on the East Coast, the Atlantic Ocean. And we went out one day, it was like 11 or maybe noon, and we walked out on the beach. And in all my many years of going to the beach, I've never seen a fog so thick and so dense on the beach. Well, we walked out there and we set up, and I was, in my chair under my umbrella, wanting to people watch and look at the water and all that. Well, I couldn't see 2 feet in front of me, beside me, in any direction. I couldn't see a thing. It was so dense and the fog had settled on the beach. Well, all of a sudden, I hear this rumbling sound. And it's like, I have no idea what it is, but it's shaking the ground on which I'm sitting. And it is loud and deep. And I'm thinking, are we getting attacked by the Russians? Or are we, and the world is going on here? So it stops. And then a couple of minutes later, it starts back up. And it's like a big bass, like a big speaker you would hear that literally shakes the ground you're sitting on. And I'm just, what? We don't know what it is. Anyway, by the time it comes around the third time, I realize what it is. And I hadn't ever heard one or seen one, but it was a foghorn. So what a foghorn does is it warns sailors of what is out there, and it's a safety measure or a warning. And I feel like that's what Revelation is. We can't see clearly, but it is a warning of sorts, and it is meant for us to read it and familiarize ourselves with it, not be scared of it, but maybe a healthy fear might be good. But really to know that this is God's way of telling us what's coming. And, back to what we talked about at the beginning, it's not because he wants us to suffer, it's because he wants us to come to him. Right. And it's about his forgiveness, and it's about his patience with people that refuse to turn to him. And so basically, Revelation is about his love and his opportunity to give the people that he created chance after chance after chance to turn to him. So that's really why I wrote this book, because I feel like Revelation is about love, about his love. And I think most people don't know that and don't read it. They don't read it that way. But that's really how I feel about it. So
I love that so much. And when you read it with that in mind, it changes everything, because you read it with that lens of this is all God's love. This is all God's love. And I think in the first chapter, it says something about you are blessed if you read it, or you're blessed if you read it out loud. Maybe.
That's right.
I always think I need to dive into this. It says I'll be blessed.
Yes, there's a blessing if you read it. And I forget exactly. I might can put my hands on it right now, what that verse is.
Yeah, I know. I kind of sprung this on you.
Keep talking. I'm about to find it.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I want to make sure I'm not. Goodness, I want to make sure I'm not adding anything to it.
I know, really. Revelation 1:3. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and who keep what is written in it, for the time is near. So in the conclusion of the book, there are 7 blessings that we find in Revelation. Believe it or not, there's 7 blessings.
Okay.
That's the first one. So good for you for bringing that up. That's true.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I will look for those 7 blessings as I read your devotional.
We know what is going to happen, and we know why it's going to happen. We know it's going to be the end of the world, and we know what's going to happen, and we know why, which is what we've talked about over and over already, so that people will turn to God. What we don't know is when it's going to happen and exactly how it's going to happen. So I don't try to answer any of those type of questions, but we do go through and talk about what's going to happen. And so that's kind of where the book goes as well.
I love that so much. And even though we do see dimly, God gave us enough, and really all we need is enough as a child to come to him, just to come to him and accept his free gift. So as complicated and mysterious, the answer, our part, is actually extremely simple. It's just
Right.
accept the gift. So that brings comfort as well.
That's right.
So, well, Katy, thank you so much for being with me. Tell us anything else that you'd like to share. I think you have some more resources available for this book.
Yes, thank you for asking. So we have a podcast and vodcast called What Matters? Let's Talk About It. It's on a YouTube channel and also just across podcast platforms. We have 22 episodes. My co-author of my first 2 devotional books, Anna Nash, and I have a conversation about each chapter in the book and Revelation, where we go through the teaching and what it means to us today. So we'd love for you to take a look and take a listen at that.
Oh, I can't wait for that. So for those of you who don't know, Katy and Anna go way back. I think way back to high school, maybe.
No, to birth.
Oh, okay. Well, yes. That is way back. There you go.
Our mothers were friends before we were born. So I'm serious.
That's amazing.
You really did go back that far.
You go back to before you were born. That's amazing.
That's cool.
So when will that podcast, has that launched yet? Your
launches July 23rd, and the podcast will launch right about the same time.
Oh, perfect. So once they have the book, they'll have access to that podcast. So, well, thank you, Katy. I so appreciate this. This has been fantastic, and I can't wait to get my hard copy.
Thank you, Marnie. I enjoyed being here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you are as excited as I am about Forever Matters, you are going to want to visit katyshelton.com for updates. That's Katy, KatyShelton.com. You can pre-order it now. It is available just about anywhere where books are sold online. And you will also be able to hear that companion podcast and vodcast that she referenced. And that is beginning July 23rd. It is called What Matters? Let's Talk About It. And that is with Katy Shelton and Anna Nash. Well, as always, I want to thank Project of Love for providing our beautiful music. You can visit them at projectoflove.com to hear their music and learn more. If you enjoy this episode and if you are enjoying this podcast, then please subscribe, rate us, share this episode. We would love to grow so we can continue to spread the good news of Jesus, the Messiah.
Oh Lord, I will honor and praise your name, for you are my God. Oh Lord, I will honor and praise your name, for you are my God. Oh Lord, I will honor and praise your name, for you are my God. In Jerusalem,